contribution last year or this current fiscal year in addition to their in-kind contributions. The upcoming fiscal year, they're asking for an increase of $30,000 plus their in-kind contributions. So that change reflects that adjustment to their contributions. With us today are members of the fire company as well as the library to present their contribution requests. So perhaps we could start with the fire company if they're ready to come up to the podium and present their request to the mayor and commissioners. Thank you.
Chuck, if you don't mind stating your name and your affiliation with the town, as well as introduce these gentlemen back here. And you need to pull that microphone within 2.5 inches of your mouth. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I am Chuck Snyder. I am the fire chief from Rehoboth Beach Volunteer Fire Company. With me today is on the right is Mike Simpler. He is our new president. As you know, our past president, Danny Mitchell, passed away back in November. Mike was elected to take the reins. Sitting next to him is our vice president, Warren Jones, and they will also be making some comments today. First off, I'd like to say thank you for bearing with us. When we got notified of being here the last time, we had already planned a conference down in Florida that we went to, a health and wellness conference, which was really, really good. There's a lot of things going on in the fire service today. Cancer, health and wellness being one of them, cancer being a very big thing that is affecting a lot of people, particularly the younger members that are coming up. Us older guys, we've probably got it, but we're trying to get it out there to the younger guys and hopefully give them a little bit better life. So anyway, with that in mind, I know I have given you a copy of the budget, Evan, I believe back in December. We had our new budget. We talked about it in January. We met and discussed it. We start with a zero budget every year, and then we go through what we think we're going to take in, what we think we're going to expend it on, and I have a current copy of that, and if you'll allow me, I will pass it out to the commissioners.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chuck.
No, that's fine. Yep, sure.
We if you look at this compared to last year, just to talk a little bit about it, we actually, our expenditures, probably like anybody, are well over our income. But with what we have done and the amount of remaining monies that we still do have in our existing checking account and with investments, we are in pretty good financial shape. We are about a $2.9 million income, and we are about a $3.6 million expense. I'm not a very good person with math, but that's probably about $600,000, almost $700,000 difference. Again, like most anything in our budget, you know, especially in our capital expenditures, if we don't do it, you know, it carries, or you know, it just goes back to a zero when we do this next year. So you're welcome to take a look at that, and if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to ask. We have asked this year for the city, and I think we sent the letter in back around November, asking for, again, our annual donation of $100,000 plus $50,000 additional to go to our new ladder truck that is now on order and will hopefully be here in October of 2024. We're thinking that anyway. It may be even a little bit later than that, and that's at a cost of about $2.1 million by the time we're all said and done. In the current budget, I will tell you, we have had to budget for a new ambulance, which has gone up quite a bit. The last ambulance we bought was around $265,000. The new ambulance is going to cost us about $425,000. That's how much they've gone up in price in the last couple of years. So, you know, the $150,000 that we can get from you folks is greatly appreciated and allows us to do our operations. One of the things I did put in your box, as you know, I gave you a cost of what it costs to equip a firefighter. And I have more of those sheets up here, and anybody is welcome to them. I will give you one. But to equip our firefighters is about $21,750. And we've got about 75 members. Okay, so that's, you know, a new guy comes on board, and we don't give them initially all this equipment until they go through a certain amount of training. They've got a year or two experience. Then, you know, they will get new gear and they'll get the things that you see on this paper. Some of the things are actually the self-contained breathing apparatus where it says $7,000. Those are on the trucks and everything. We don't buy a new one for every firefighter that comes in. But that's what it costs us when we have a guy that's geared up, getting ready to go into a building, a burning building. That is what the cost is. I've also got here, and I want to pass out to you also, what it costs to equip and staff one of our ambulances. We thought giving you a little bit of this information would allow you to understand a little bit more about us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you look at this sheet, cost that it costs to equip and staff one ambulance, and this includes the cost of the ambulance naturally, and the staff of 2 people. But if you look at the bottom figure is $622,000 to staff and equip one ambulance. Now that ambulance has got a 5 to 7 year life on it. Okay, so it's not like we're spending this every year. But when we do, this is the amount of money that has to go out to equip this. The figure up at the top, I know may be a little bit deceiving where it says $357,000, but if you add that power load that we call in the bottom of it and some of the equipment that we may have to purchase to replace or put on this unit because of usage, new technology and so forth, but like I said, we're up to around $425,000 this year that we're going to spend to staff and equip a new ambulance. The last thing I want to give to you is we do employ 15 people. They work for us, okay? We pay them, the fire company pays them out of the donations that we get, and also some monies that we recoup from the ambulance billing. I have a paper here I'm going to pass out to you. This is an average cost. This is not everybody. We took like a middle figure because we pay, when you see the hourly salary, you will see that it is an average. It's $19.13 an hour. We do pay some of our employees that have been here a little longer more than that, and we have some newer employees, particularly some that just came on board, that we pay less than that. But this is the average for that, and then there's a total figure of what the average annual total cost for the 15 employees is at the bottom. And you'll see that's over $1 million, and you'll see in the budget that it's actually more than that in our current budget because, again, we have to figure that in based on the salaries and benefits that the employee gets based on how long they've been working for us.
Thanks, Chuck.
I got 3.
That's all the paperwork I'm going to give you. As you can see, it's not cheap to run a fire department, okay? And we just kind of want to make you aware of that. Now, understand, and we do too, we are a fire district, as you know. We not only do Rehoboth, we do Dewey Beach, we do North Shores, Henlopen Acres, and we do a very large unincorporated county area, All right, and this is our annual budget to cover all that. As you folks know, we also have what we call 2.5 stations. We share a station with Lewis out on Route 24. But it's still, half of the maintenance is ours, half of it is theirs. That's how we did that several years ago when we built that joint station to benefit both fire districts. We do try to give you updates. I know sometimes I'm a little late with my reports. There's a lot of things going on, but we've tried to give you a report every month and let you know the amount of calls and particularly what we're running in the city. We've been a little lax on the ambulance side because we never really tracked them, and we're going to be a little bit more diligent and better with that this year. But we figured we did a little over 800 last year, Warren. Warren is also our fire recorder. We did 800 fire calls in the district and over 4,000 ambulance calls. So we're right around 5,000 responses a year, okay, for our fire company. Now, with most of that being ambulance, that is also handled by our career staff, all right? Everything else, any fire, emergency calls for assistance, whatever the case may be, is all handled by a dedicated group of volunteers that comes into the city to provide that service. The city is too expensive to live in. We have nobody who lives in the city, okay? All of our response, particularly at night, comes from out of town. Even the people that come in town to man the apparatus next door don't live in the city. So again, we have a very dedicated group of guys that do respond in to provide you guys service. And, we don't know how much it is, but we know it's billions of dollars of real estate that we protect, okay, or provide you service. And again, the volunteers, like the three of us that are sitting here now, we don't get a dime for it. All right? There's a lot of time here, too. Warren's been in fire service 60 years. Next year, I get 50 years. Mike's been in, I know, over 25 years. So there's a lot of dedication to some of the guys that are here, but we also got a real young contingent starting to come in, and we've been lucky to be able to recruit that because the old guys like me are getting ready to, and Warren are going to take a step back, and there's got to be people to fill those ranks. And the problem is we're not getting it in the city, okay? This is a affluent community. The folks don't really move down here to come out on a rainy, cold, nasty night to do what we do. And, we've got to have the younger people that are willing to do that and provide that service. So with that in mind, I'm not going to speak anymore. I'm going to turn it over to Warren, and he would like to come up here and address you also.
Old man, come on up.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Warren Jones. I'm the Vice President of Rehoboth Beach Volunteer Fire Company. I've been a member, I'm a firehouse brat. I've been in the fire service all my life, but I've only been down here 17 years. So that's a good part of what I've been doing. If you recall, in 2018, those commissioners that were here in 2018, I was here to make a presentation to you about a permanent funding source. At that time, and I try to make notes whenever I do these kinds of things, at that time, Commissioner Tony Sharp said we need to find a permanent funding source for the fire company so they don't have to come begging every year. Commissioner Stan Mills, who is now Mayor Stan Mills, said back then, and he reminded me that I came in 2016 to talk about a building permit fees. So he reminded me about that, and he said he would like to see every property owner pay for the services. At that time, Commissioner Pat Calusi added that her tax bill from our house in Florida includes a fee for fire rescue. So she brought that in. By the time we were all done talking that day, we seemed to have a consensus of something that we needed to take a look at. Mayor Coons at the time didn't want to do anything that budget year, so it kind of got put on the wayside. What I'd like to do, since it's 5 years later, I'd like to come back and bring that up again. And I know a lot of you like data, information. In 2020, we put together a capital campaign to replace our then 25-year-old ladder truck. And we did that, unfortunately, during COVID. And when we did that during COVID, we decided not to send solicitations out to the community as a whole because of COVID. We decided not to solicit from the businesses because of COVID. So what we did, we select every home in our district that had a value of $1 million or more. And that's our whole district now, but I'll get to the city of Rehoboth in a second. So that was $2,027 million homes that we solicited for this capital campaign. Our return on that was 174 responders came back to us with some kind of donation. That's 8.6% actually came back to help us with that capital campaign. We decided to go back out in 2021 with the same campaign, but this year we went back and looked at how many more million-dollar houses showed up in our district, when we also decided to do the businesses. We didn't do the businesses the first year because of COVID, because we thought they were down. So we went out again with this time to $2,247 million homes and 390 businesses. Our response then was 7.8% from the homes and 6.7% from the businesses. Now, granted, that's our entire district. It's not the city of Rehoboth Beach. So I want to tell you what our fund drive is just for the city of Rehoboth Beach last year. Last year, how many homes are 44 or 1,400 some homes in the city? Am I close there? Hello? Yes? Okay. I use that for a number. Out of that, there was 304 of those 1,400 homes responded back to our fund drive. That's 22%. That means 22% of the people who live in the city of Rehoboth donated to the fire fund drive. The other 78% did not. We have one group of people that go to the same address in the city in city of Wilmington that own 5 of these houses. They sent us 0. So going back to what Stan said in 2016, we need to find some way that's fair and equal. Some way it's not fair for only 22% of the people who live in the city to be supporting the fire rescue operations, and 78% aren't. I don't see where that's fair. I know we're not going to do it this budget period, but I really would like to sit down and chat with you about doing something in the future, going down the road, maybe next year or what have you. And I know, again, that Mr. Mayor, you like numbers. We had 185 fire calls in the city of Rehoboth last year. We had almost 800 EMS calls in the city of Rehoboth last year. We're up to that, almost 1,000 calls we're handling in the city of Rehoboth every year. And it's not just fire calls that we do for the city. Yesterday, we had 30 people next door and throughout the streets working the polar bear plunge. And those people all came, most of them came from our 2 surrounding stations, came in the city to work the polar bear plunge. You add the 4th of July fireworks, you add Sea Witch. We do this every time. So we don't just serve you in emergency services purposes, but we serve you for all the events you have here, whether it's those 3 events or all the other ones that are going on. The Rehoboth Beach Volunteer Fire Company is here coming in to serve you all in the city of Rehoboth. And as Chuck said, we're coming from all our other fire stations. Chuck just gave an idea of what our cost is escalating to. $300,000, now it's $400,000 for an ambulance. We bought a fire truck in 2021 for $600,000. Today it's $900,000. That's how much our costs are going up. I try to figure out what the problem is. I think the biggest problem is a majority of the people who own houses in the city don't live here. They're from out of state where they're paying, and I can tell that by where our fund drive letters go. We send fund drive letters out to probably 20, 30 different states. One goes to Honolulu, so it tells you how many people own property here in the city of Rehoboth. And that's just the homes. You know, we really need to seriously consider with some type of permanent situation, so we don't have to keep coming back begging, which is basically what we're doing every year. We're an emergency service. We supply you a good emergency service. And we like to talk about that. I'm sure there's something we can work on as we go along here. Any questions for me? Yes.
I have one. Thank you for everything you guys do. I think you guys do a tremendous job. I was, as a marketing person, 22% is pretty good, so congratulations, but we need to do better. I'm wondering, do you have numbers? Did you guys send out individual things to our friends in Dewey and Hanopen Acres? And how were their responses?
Oh, I don't have their responses to me, but yes, we send out our fire fund drive to our entire district. So it covers Hanopen Acres and it covers the Dewey as well. I believe, and I don't remember exactly what Hanopen Acres was, but I could track that down for you.
And is North Shores under Hanopen Acres?
No, that's a separate group, and they're not really an official city or town or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I got to apologize to both of you. I haven't met you. The other folks here, I've had occasion to meet before, and I'd like to, get to know you along the line. Tony, I'm sorry, do you have a question?
That's all right. Mr. Jones, I just want to understand, because I'm supportive of the fire department, and I don't like this routine where you have to come and ask for funds as opposed to something that's a guarantee every year. But I am kind of curious, does anyone know, or do you know, what % of the whole area that you cover, Rehoboth, Dewey, unincorporated, whatever it is, what % is the city, the 1 square mile of the city of Rehoboth Beach?
What % of what do you mean?
Of the whole territory that you cover?
You mean population-wise? Or you mean funding coming into us? What?
No, I'm not talking about funding. I'm talking about those areas, the whole 100% that you service.
Right.
What % is the city of Rehoboth Beach?
I don't know. Mike, can you answer that?
Geographically.
Geographically, thank you.
Mike?
Geographically, I can't tell you, but number-wise, we send out 17,900 and some fund drive letters to properties, which are all based on tax ID numbers, because tax ID numbers are relevant to the property itself. It never changes. Homeowners will change, but property values or property taxes numbers do not change. By the way, my name's Mike Simpler. I'm president of Rehoboth Fire Company. With that, with 14 to 1,500 properties in the city of Rehoboth, you can figure that's 1/10
Okay.
of the total properties owned. A lot of our district is Rehoboth Bay also, and we do protect the Rehoboth Bay as well. So about 10% of our total area is the city of Rehoboth.
So for the stations that y'all cover, that's really about 17,000 properties?
Correct.
Is that
Or tax
another way to
ID.
say it?
Correct.
Okay. So we're about 10%. Thank you very much.
And out of the total number that we send out, we only get about 19.5% return from everything.
I understand that challenge.
Yep.
And I have one other question about the ladder truck. It's astounding how much it's gone up in price. I guess I'm just curious. I think I read it has already been ordered and should be delivered in 2024. Where are you actually in paying for that truck?
We don't have to make a payment now until delivery. And over the past couple of years, from what Vice President Jones has been doing and the rest of the fundraising we've been doing and the extra $50,000 you folks have been giving to us over the years, we've been putting that in investments. At this time, we have investments in different locations at approximately $500,000 towards that. And we still have a year and a half, Chuck, to still raise the money to that.
So is it fair to say the 2.1 million all in that the truck is going to cost, that you have not raised that yet?
That's correct. And that ladder that we currently have, I think was 86, Chuck, 84? 95, that ladder was 95. It reaches most of the tall buildings in town. You've got 2 new hotels being built in the city possibly, that we're going to need that ladder, a newer ladder, to reach those areas. We can't reach it from the boardwalk front because the ladder's too heavy, So we've got to have it from the sides. And the funding is, of course, it's done from selling the T-shirts, going out and meeting people, you folks with your contributions, and being able to recognize the people in the area. The biggest thing is they don't understand we're volunteers. They're coming from Baltimore, Washington, New York, where they're paid departments. Anne Arundel County. I mean, we have a lot of people that come from New York City now. They're coming out, they're a paid department. They don't have to think about the volunteer service, doing anything and paying for stuff. We own everything in that station. The city doesn't own anything of it. The state doesn't own anything of it. We own it, we buy it, we take care of it. And it's an expense. As you guys know as commissioners and Board of Public Works, your equipment you have, you guys own it, you pay for it, you do the maintenance on it, you do the fuel on it, and it adds up over time. Even though they might not run like you guys do every day on the street, they have to be able to go out and protect you guys when you call and say, my house is on fire, or you need the ambulance because your wife or husband has gone down. We need the equipment to be able to support the area, not only the city, which is very important because population-wide, it explodes bigger than any other part of our district. Well explodes over it. And we have to be ready to go. If it went off right now for a working house fire, the three of us would be on it. Like he says, Warren, 60 years. Chuck's got almost 50. I joined in '83 when I turned 18, being born and raised here.
I started when I was 5, by the way.
And my two boys.
Jay had a question, too.
Yes, sir.
I see you have a $1.77 million long-term loan from the county bank. What's that for?
That's for Station 2.
For construction station
Was
2?
for construction of Station 2.
And you guys are in great shape. The public needs to know how much that ladder truck's going to cost. $2.5 million. And that's just the check you'll write. You'll know it in your bank account when you write that check.
Did I?
It's a great job.
I'm sorry, did I underestimate at 2.1? I thought that's what you said.
2.1.
2.1.
If equipment
Oh, well,
doesn't
that's
go up
nothing.
in between now and then to add more equipment to it as it comes in, new pieces of smaller equipment, breathing apparatus and all that. And one thing that Chuck mentioned earlier was how much the gear costs per person. You gotta remember, we run 3 stations. So we have to have at least 2 sets of gear per person. Because if I'm in town here, which is where I respond and have since I was 18, if I'm out in Angola or if I'm out at Station 2 and the fire whistle goes off to come in town here, I've got to have my set of gear there too for my protection. So where you see 21, 25,000, you're now talking 50,000 to man a person. So, is there any other questions on the budget?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm just curious, I see here that you also receive donations, if you will, from state EMS insurance tax grant and a fire insurance and state grant. Is there any relationship of how that's determined? Is there a formula that comes in, or is that kind of, you just ask for that amount, or just how are those figures, that 1.2 million determined?
Yeah, that's my bailiwick, by the way.
Okay.
The state insurance, yes, there's a formula for the state insurance money. The state insurance money is every insurance that's written in Sussex County. So you take the total pie, whatever insurance is written in there, and a percentage of that is allotted to the volunteer fire companies. And whatever's written in Sussex County is divided equally by the 21 fire companies in Sussex County. The ambulance insurance that you're probably looking at there too comes from all the health insurance that's written in the state of Delaware. And again, there is a 0.0003% of that's distributed out to all the ambulance companies in the state of Delaware. Same formula, equally by how many companies there is.
And along those lines, you mentioned that, we've got new hotels coming online here. There's certainly a lot of building going on elsewhere in Sussex County. Is there any relationship that the county has with regards to, the new hospitals or new apartments or what have you, that any correlation that those developers are responsible for any funding of fire services or police services or anything that you're aware of?
No, there's no, I forget what they call it in Newcastle County, but they have a fee up there for increased development. Sussex County doesn't have that.
Impact fee.
Pardon?
It's an impact fee.
Impact fee,
Impact fee, very good, that's what it's called.
but it's a one-time,
Yes, correct. The only thing we get out or that come to us is directly from the building fees that go to the state, which just reduced their amount by 1%. So, and then again, it's wherever it's written in the state, wherever the building is going on, then again, it's distributed in a fashion to the fire companies out there. But our district is just about done. You know, there's nothing much left to build in the Rehoboth Beach Fire Company. No, in our district now. Our district starts at the inlet, goes out to Route 24. We follow Route 24 on the left-hand side all the way out to Burton's Pond. So half of the Angola area is our district, but there's not much ground left where there are building there now, but pretty soon that's going to be completely wiped out. Our district's going to be done as far as growth is concerned.
and one other question with regards to the donations that you received from Dewey and Henlopen, do you make the same kind of pitch to their council as to us?
I have already been to the Henlopen
Okay.
Acres, people making the exact same thing that I just talked to you about.
Okay, thank you.
Dewey's a little different because they don't have property taxes, so they're next on the list, by the way. We wanted to hit the guys who are big guys first. Yes, Steve.
Go ahead, Jay.
What percentage of your vehicular assets go to the emergency ambulance and emergency response for medical things? Are you a third or?
Go ahead.
It depends. If it's an ambulance call, it usually runs out with a supervisor during the daytime, and at night, it's one ambulance because we split the district in half. Anything from like the Safeway, the Sierra outlets area, south is covered by the in-town crew that is stationed right here at Station 1. The rest in Angola area is covered by Station 2. In an accident, we try to run at least one piece from each station, depending on the manpower that shows up.
And you own all that equipment?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Also, just to let you know, we are looking at, because of the increased number in ambulance runs, we're looking at putting a possible third ambulance crew on, because it's getting now that it's just getting busy to where one's in Dewey Beach, one's here, get another call, we got to get another ambulance on the road and not have to worry about either Bethany coming up or Lewis coming down, because their numbers are going up too. Just for example, Lewis ran, what'd they have, 5,000 ambulance runs? They had 5,000 ambulance run because they have a bigger landlocked area where we have mostly water. So, I mean, we're like number 3 in the county for ambulance runs.
Yeah, well, you know, I've been very supportive over the years. Warren, you and I met with Evan, young Evan, when he was early here. And, you know, at that time, I think regularly the city was giving you $60,000. And then when we talked, we came out of that and sold the commissioners on upping it to $100,000. And we thought maybe that would take care of it. And then I guess was it last year or the year before, we had a surplus and the commissioners were very generous and gave you that extra $50,000. So now it seems like the norm is the $100,000 plus the $50,000. I'm just curious, by the time the new truck comes in, what percentage the city will have paid for? Because if that takes 3 to 4 years to pay for it, we will have paid maybe 10%, and about 10%. So I was just curious. Now, of course, we have a bigger area, bigger need perhaps than Henlopen and Dewey Beach. But, you know, I tell you, that's one of the biggest things on people's minds is why aren't these other municipalities contributing at least something more than they are? And of course, there's not necessarily any answer for that. But I don't know if everybody knows about the ambulance subscription program, but so that's one of your bigger fundraisers. If you don't mind telling you about that, I have to admit I've had to use that a couple times myself.
About 3 years ago, we were looking for other ways to help fund the ambulance, pay the salaries, and support it. Almost every other company in Sussex County, pretty much in the state of Delaware, has what's called an ambulance policy or ambulance subscription. We started off at $50, and we had good response with people. And what basically it does is if you have an ambulance run, we come to your house. Most people in our district, their ages, they're either on Medicaid, Medicare, on the lower end, or on the age end. We don't get full payment for the ambulance run. Sometimes it's less than 50% of what it costs to really provide a run for what the government tells us it should cost. Therefore, the policy, we won't bill you anymore if you have the policy. So it's basically an insurance policy for the ambulance that you would have. Of course, auto accidents, if we haul you on an auto accident, that insurance pays usually 80%. But with the demographics of the area, the way it's changed to older communities, that's why we only get certain funding from payback. Even from regular insurance companies, they do the same thing. There's no more 100% repay.
It's a good program, and it's certainly a bargain. Again, we've used it a couple times over the past several years. My only complaint from my wife would be that it's a bumpy ride, she said. So, very good. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a few.
Commissioner Chernowski?
Thank you guys for being here. I want to be sure I'm reading it correctly. On the profit and loss budget versus actual, the January through December, the first column there, that's actuals just for the first 5 weeks of this year? That's
Correct.
That's correct. So most of your ambulance subscription comes in January, I'm
Yes,
assuming?
we send that out the first week in January. And then we don't send a second one out because the policies start March 1st. It runs March 1st to March 1st. That allows people to have time to send it back in. And last year, we took in just under 150. So we figured conservatively 150 again.
And I noticed that you don't have any hall rental income. So do you guys not charge for the use of the hall when you've got Jazz Fest and other organizations using it?
If you look further down on the, did they put it in there? It's Jazz Fest. Jazz Fest does rent the hall, but they, this year was the first year they rented it. They usually do a benefit for us as a donation, and they don't charge us to have them come into the engine bay. We're allowed to, we do get a liquor license and have the alcohol donated. So we use that as a fundraiser. And then all the ticket sales from the Jazz Marathon during the day is given to us, all the ticket sales. This year, because they lost a couple places to be able to perform, they paid us rent for the hall. And we have created a committee on the new committee list. It's a Station 1 committee for working and upgrading Station 1, and also looking at how we can do further fundraising with the hall rentals again in the stations. But we have to do a lot of work inside the firehouse. And you'll see on the capital expenditures, $200,000 for capital expenditures for Station 1 and Station 2. That is to do, majority of that work is for Station 1 because we're finding from over years, separation of the front of the building and side of the building where concrete and the brick all meet up, replacing all the windows. And we just have heard some of the pricing coming back on windows even to be installed. It's like, and then the lead time, we're talking, what do you say, 15 weeks lead time to get the windows in? So it's something we're really looking at doing, is that side also. And we do give it, we also give it out to, like, the Rehoboth Homeowner Association uses it. Other nonprofits do use the station, and we don't charge them because they're nonprofit like us. So.
Well, for me, this is only budget meeting 2, and we've got 2 to 3 more. So it's hard to make a determination and say right away, hey, you're going to get it. we've got some more evaluating to do, and we've got to listen through it. So we will be probably discussing it more later. I would like to share with you one question that I've been bringing up to all the groups lately, and that is, do you all have a strategy for what to do if funding is short this year?
If funding's short, right now, we would be okay for the year. But for the long range, for paying for the ladder, paying for the ambulance, which is in the budget for 430,000, we would be tight. And the ambulances are getting age on them. The stretcher, just one stretcher alone with what we'd have to buy is $50,000 with the power lift. And the two that we currently have in the one ambulance are out of date. So that's part of the budget. We have, over the years from back when Mayor Cooper was treasurer, he always kept us on a straight and narrow of how to keep it. When Teddy Doyle was in there as treasurer, kept us on straight and narrow. We don't spend money wild and crazy. We pretty well keep it budget. We budgeted everything pretty low because of the economy right now. We don't know how things will come in, but we also see how stuff is going up. So it is going to be very tight if we don't get all the funding we.
I'm glad to hear you've thought about it. So from any other commissioners?
Yeah, that kind of brings me to my next question is, it looks like you're budgeted for this coming year a loss of 700,000. And when I look at your profit and loss that you provided from November of last year, you're about you had a net income of negative 150,000. Do you usually end in the negative each year and just are pulling from your
It
cash
depends
assets?
on what we have or haven't gotten in from the state funding also.
Okay.
Because like the red light camera funds, which is whenever anybody runs a red light in our area, which we hope they don't, that funding sometimes doesn't come in till the following January or February. So going back to a zero budget, we have to calculate that back. And like right now, you showed that we're 678, I believe, thousand in the negative side for our budget. We do have about 600 in our savings account right now, 600,000 in our checking, I should say, and that offsets the zero balance because we had to redo some of the radio tower communications, which was $100 and some thousand. So we've had to carry that over from last year. And of course, the other big number is the new ambulance that we just purchased, which won't be here until next year. So then that'll roll over into the budget of next year as well, possibly.
And just want to clarify one last thing. You said you had about a $500,000 in the tower fund.
Correct.
But it looks like you have 3 different CDs, a 12, an 18,
That is,
and a 6 month.
they are mislabeled as tower.
Okay.
When we took them to Morgan Stanley, the treasurer then told him this is for the tower. And he just wrote tower on that. And I don't know if you know QuickBooks, but he's been having problems renaming those. 2 of them are the tower. There's one, I believe, that's 249 and some change. And
So
another
one of them
that's,
is mislabeled. So
Correct.
you are at a $500,000, not
Right.
not 750. Okay.
Right, for the tower. But that's not to say that that savings money won't go to that, but it's also got to offset whatever our negative budget is for that side.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
I just give
Commissioner?
one observation and one question for the commissioners, not for you guys. And thank you so much since y'all are an absolutely essential service.
Thank you.
This is what's always an odd conversation for me. I'm kind of troubled by, if I got these numbers correct, that of the outreach that you did in Rehoboth, 78% did not respond. And I think I understood that was in the city of Rehoboth Beach. Yes, that's correct. In our 1 square mile. Yeah. So that's interesting to me as well as troubling. But at the same time, I wonder, I may have asked this question, and maybe it was answered to me several years ago when I talked about a permanent funding source. Is that something that is just not done with a volunteer fire department for the citizens of Rehoboth Beach? Because I would imagine if we canvassed everybody and said, would you like the fire department to show up if your house is on fire, that's going to be 100%. So it's odd to me that 22% are in turn writing checks to support this, just to be blunt.
Well, I guess some of our constituents in the past have said, well, look, if the city's giving $150,000, then I don't need to do that. And so there's that little conundrum there, you know, that,
They also look at that other 1.1 million as taxpayer money that's coming from Sussex County, the state. I mean, that people look at it that way.
I find that interesting, but thank you for that clarification.
you know.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
I guess the answer to my question about permanent funding within the city of Rehoboth is there's no energy around that, and we're not going to go in that direction, so I can quit asking about it.
Well, I don't know. That's something that the commissioners can bring up. If you recall the introduction to Warren's discussion, he mentioned that years ago we talked about, was it a percentage of the building permit fee that would go to the fire department? And I think it didn't that way. We at that time analyzed that and came up with an extra number. But at that time, my recollection is we just said, "Hey, we're going to give you an extra $40,000." We brought it from $60,000 to $100,000 because we thought that would be satisfying. and I mean, obviously their expenses are going up, so
Sure.
I think we need to respond appropriately as well. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I want to make sure we understand all of that because I think that's very impactful. And I think some people do figure 150 from the city, the state, Sussex County, it's all taxpayer money, right?
Right.
But I think a lot of people are just completely ignorant too. They live in other areas where it's a municipal service and they don't know. They don't read mail, et cetera. But the number is even more disturbing because I believe you guys referenced 320 responses and you used 1,400-ish as the basis.
Which responses you
I think just the fire fund.
just for the city of Rehoboth?
Yeah, just the city of Rehoboth.
We got 185 fire calls in the city of Rehoboth last year.
No, I meant responses to the fundraising efforts that you mail out.
Out of the 1,400 mailers, what was your response?
130 people.
22%, wasn't it?
22%, yeah.
But that number's even disturbing because we have about, Evan, I think you may know this number off the top of your head. It was just under 3,500 properties in Rehoboth, including condos and commercial properties, is it not?
Correct, I believe, yeah.
Would it be possible to get an updated list of the property owners in the city of Rehoboth with not only their addresses here, but also their billing, tax billing? Because.
Yeah, I sent that to
compare-
someone recently, in this past year. I don't know I think Kent Schwartz asked for it or Carl.
So it's not 1,400 households.
No, it's just under 3,500.
Now, when you said 1,400, I thought, that's not the right number.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, but, well, it depends whether you talk about single-family homes or condos and,
Well, yeah, but
residential
if
units.
you're even in a condo, I would think we would want to reach out to every person in the condo, every,
The fact of the matter is,
Yeah.
the condo buildings are one of the reasons why we have to have the ladder truck, not because of the single-family homes.
so maybe we can close the gap.
The 1,400 number came from the census online. I could never find the correct number for how many homes are in the city.
sounds right, doesn't it?
1495 was the last
Full-time
time
Right.
census
residents.
count.
Right.
So what's the count?
Was 1495 was the 2020 census count for
It's
the city.
hard to equate that to
Yeah, it's-
residential units, right?
Just people living here.
Right.
So but the total properties are what?
Just under 3,500.
Just under 3,500.
So 1,100 people
So that-
live outside the area that are probably in areas, most likely, that are serviced by paid departments, county or city departments versus volunteer departments.
And you say there are paid departments in other areas, or no? Did I miss you?
Oh, Anne Arundel County,
Okay, okay.
you know, everywhere.
But
pretty
nothing
much
in
everything.
Delaware?
Just the city of Wilmington.
Wilmington.
So that 22% is a lot less.
Yeah, it's much less.
So if we can check just to make sure, we'll look on our end also, but if we can't seem to locate it, would we be able to get a current list of everything? Of all the property?
Yeah, I think that's public record, right?
Can we share that list, or can we send something out?
Well, I know we have a property list. I mean, Donna Moore prepares that, we get it. But the question is, we don't have like email or
No,
phone numbers or
no,
anything. Like that.
that's
You'd have
fine.
to
We just
figure out
need
how
the
to
property.
deliver it,
Side to go against the list we have, because we have one from the county and it's not always up to date. And we're finding properties are transferring so fast also, that where you put it in today, you do
Right.
the mailing, our fire mailing in June, they've already sold the property and another owner's got it, and it's being,
Return.
costing us 70 cents to come back with a address that's no longer correct.
I'll talk with the city manager, see if we can get you that list. You've got a good rapport with the homeowners association, so I would suggest going back to them for your ambulance subscription program and stuff like that. Because they've always supported you in the past. I know I used to do articles.
They don't share their memberships though.
No, but if they at least use their newsletter to put a hard copy advertisement in there, hey. Okay.
When were you last with them? Because they've kind of
Thank you, guys.
Case, that's who I am.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate that. Evan, did you have anybody up, staff have any questions for the fire department? No? Very good. With that, we'll close out the fire departments. Again, we'll probably have further discussions later in evaluating your ask. And with that, next on our agenda, I would like to bring up the folks at the Rehoboth Beach Public Library. Still do the same program if you would. You need to talk close to that microphone so everybody can hear you. This is being recorded. And if you start off with your names and affiliation with the city, we'd appreciate it.
Good afternoon. I'm Thomas Wentarik, excuse me, and I'm president of the Rehoboth Beach Public Library Board of Trustees. And with me today is Lauren McCauley, who is our program librarian, and she is temporarily filling in as acting library director because Allison Miller, our previous library director, went to work with the city or the county of Sussex County. So we're currently recruiting for the position, and we'll be going through the process of screening and filling that hopefully within the next few weeks. So I'll do most of the presentation. Lauren will be available if there are any questions regarding programs that I may not be able to answer. The November 21, our library director sent a request in. I believe all of you have it. Excuse me?
We have it right
It's up there. Okay, good. And in that request, they included an annual report. And the annual report is a report for the fiscal year ending in 2022, which was the year that, for the library, ended June 30 of 2022. That's the report there. And if you look on this page, the financial page, I understand it, I noticed that there was a discrepancy in there. If you look at the pie chart in that, for that year, the pie chart shows that the city donation of $30,000 represents 6% of the income that the library received. But just above that was the Friends contribution, which the printed number there is a 1%. Actually, the Friends contribution was almost 9%. So that is the error, and that the pie chart wedges are appropriate and correct, but the number for the Friends was incorrect. So if you notice that, I just wanted to point that out. And in the this is the June 2022 report that we submitted. In addition, the letter that the library director sent on the 21st included the numbers for the fiscal year 23, which is the year that we are currently in. And our fiscal year begins July 1 and we run through June 30. I understand the city's fiscal year begins April 1 and runs through March 31 the following year. So the numbers in the letter reflect the activities that we've been doing in our current fiscal year, the one that will be ending in June of 2023. And we're primarily a service and program type operation. We provide services to our service area, which, if you're not familiar, I don't have a copy of this, excuse me, but the Rehoboth beaches, the city of Rehoboth Beach is up in this corner. Our service area goes all the way along the Atlantic Ocean, down almost to Angola and over to Route 24. So it's primarily in that area that we provide services. Excuse me. And that area encompasses, it runs about 9 miles north and south and about 5 miles east and west. So those are the programs and the activities that we've been performing during these last 3 years. And what we're continuing is to request the $75,000 contribution that you provided in fiscal year 23, which represents 13% of our total revenue. So for fiscal year 24, we're asking for a contribution, continuing contribution of $75,000. And I don't know if you have any questions or comments regarding the programs that we provide. We are an independent library. We are not part of any government. We do receive substantial funding from the Sussex County. We receive a good amount of money from the state of Delaware. We receive your contribution as a donation, and also we have an active friends group which raises a healthy amount of money for us to maintain our operation. So I don't know if you have any questions or comments regarding what we've requested.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Like I asked before, or mentioned before, we're early in the process. We need to look at everything that's being proposed to us before we make any decisions. But as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to ask you, has the library met and have any kind of strategy for what to do if funding falls short this year?
Yeah. We have been, excuse me, I apologize. We have been doing some additional fundraising, trying these Giving Tuesday programs and some of the other solicitation proposals that will bring in some revenue. We also rely heavily on the Friends Group to supplement whatever might be coming up short from the city. But we are early in the process. We haven't started working on our fiscal year 24 budget because that won't take effect until July 1. But we were thinking of doing some mail order soliciting similar to what the fire department said. But when I hear the effort to send those out and the minimal response for a service like the fire department, I wonder how effective that would be for the city to try, or the library to try something similar. Plus, you are aware that we have been looking at making improvements to the library buildings and services, and obviously we're going to have to raise local funds to help support that effort. But it will not affect the next year or two as far as the operation of the library, but certainly there will be in the future some changes that we'll be able to address.
Very good. Thank you very much. Commissioners? Anything?
No, I guess the only thing for me would be that both the fire department and the library and the other two that we've already spoken to, I would hope that the leadership would take the position regarding strategic planning, that if the day comes where the city is unable to make any donation, what is your strategic plan in order to fill that gap? I think it's a fair question, and I think every organization should be ready. It's just like we need to be ready if some of our revenue sources were to not be as robust as they have been in the past. So that's the only comment, and I thank you for everything you do for the city and surrounding areas.
Thank you, I understand. I laud your support that you've been able to provide, and look forward to continuing working with the city as we go into looking at what the future of the library will be.
Have you thought of charging money for the media that stands on your second floor trying to take pictures of Biden?
We do rent-
Maybe there's an income
We do rent
revenue
the space
generator.
to the media, and I'm not sure how long that will continue, but certainly while we're here, and they love it because it's a beautiful backdrop
Yes,
that they can use with City Hall in the background, and we should be here because it's this is the public governmental center of the town. You have the City Hall, the fire department, police department, and the library. The only thing you're missing is a church, and then you have the typical New England town square. But
Thank you. Any staff members want to ask a question or a comment? If not, we thank you, and you're welcome to hang around. I don't know that we're going to talk too much more about contributions. I think we're going to head on to the next topic.
I just had a comment thinking of reflecting back on these two proposals here and the ones we heard last time. Other fundraising activities I've been involved in over the years, we've been successful in, if you will, developing matching grants, matching funds. And I'm just curious that if for future, that if the city, for instance, would say, for the fire department, we'll give you $100,000, and that $50,000 for the truck is we would match that if you could specifically come up with matching grants to that, so that would, $1 for $1 in the essence, up to $50,000. So that, for lack of a better term, you kind of have some skin in the game also. I know you do independent fundraising and what have you, the same with the library, but that if you go out with a pitch of, we can make, if you donate $1, we'll make $1 for $1, or whatever the ratio may be. But just for future, I think that may be an advantage for all four of the individual organizations that have approached us. And I know they all do individual fundraising, but if it were to, a buck for a buck might be, I know Historical Society has done that on a smaller scale, but just something to think about for the future that the city could participate in on that. So, and I also think that I would like to see, I know we've been doing this, I've been involved in this for a long time, but that if we could perhaps come up with a more grant application fund, so that, you all supply us with a lot of varying information. It's all good information, your financial background, what you plan to do, et cetera. But in applying for grants, there's always, a basic step-by-step, these are basic information to fill out. We've all gone through a grant process. And one of those, a lot of them, stipulate that you have to have a strategic plan in place in order to apply for the grant. So I wonder if that's something, not this year, obviously, but next couple of years, that the city may want to identify or develop a request for financial assistance that included some of those points, so that the applicants are aware of the criteria that the city requires to make that investment for in the city. I mean, we're investing in the city and our taxpayers, but I just think that if we have a more formalized program, or at least our expectations of what you're going to do with the money or how you use that money, that we want to look at, again, for the next budget cycle, the following budget cycle. Just some thoughts.
Very good. Thank you.
Mayor, before we leave contributions,
Yes.
I was thinking about the Rehoboth Main Street And the Historical Society, I'm sorry.
I was going to release them.
Oh,
I'm sorry to
go
interrupt.
ahead.
You're talking about Main Street?
Well,
Okay.
we'd already heard from both of those entities. And one of the things that you brought up to them and you're reinforcing here is the strategic planning aspect. And so I had a recollection from last year's budget discussion regarding Main Street. And I thought it was maybe something I did not remember correctly. So I went back to all of the newsletters, the RBMS newsletters, and found what they had talked about at our budget meeting. And it was listed in their February 2022 newsletter, where it made a statement about starting to work in one of the committees on a strategic plan. So maybe it's time to start asking, well, what happened with that? What's the result of that? It's a year now. So, because we were told when I asked the question in the last budget meeting that no, there is no strategic plan for Main Street. And I thought that just didn't ring 100% true, because I thought, I know they mentioned putting time and effort toward that. So before we close this out on contributions, I would like to find out from Main Street, well, what happened after February of 2022 to that note that's in the newsletter? So
Well, I'll reach out to them and ask them to come back at some point.
that'd be great. Thank
all
you.
right?
Yeah, I just on that topic, I know that they have had strategic planning sessions, so I'm sure they're happy to.
It'd be great to hear. How did it
relay
go?
on that.
What's the future going to be?
The other thing that I know Main Street is starting to going through the process of having audited financial statements, and as a not just Main Street, but as a municipal body that is giving money away, I think that's something that we may want to require from all of our entities that ask for money, is their, at least every so often, their financial statements being independently audited. I think is important.
That's kind of what I'm thinking of in the criteria, so that we're on an even playing field, if you will, because for all applicants for that. I just, as some history data driven, looking back, in FY 2018, which was one of the first budgets involved in, we contributed $123,000 to various organizations. This year, we're asked for $315,000, so more than double the request over 6 years. So, and I know everything gets expensive, but just some perspective.
Very good, thank you. With that, can we close out the contribution discussion?
Yes.
All righty, and thank you, Chuck. Warren is gone, and Michael, we appreciate it. We appreciate Warren pointing out that he actually listened to some commissioners a couple of years ago.
Thank you very much.
Maybe that's a note to Tony and I, or maybe a warning to Tony and I that some people are listening once in a while. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. We will be in touch, certainly. With that, I wanted to move back to the Canal dock. If you recall, we kind of left it open-ended on whether we want to put any monies into it other than maintenance. And I did want to reiterate Suzanne Good's letter after the last meeting that obviously she's not for, as I don't believe has ever been for the dock. And again, her correspondence, I think, was essentially to abandon it for the next 10 years and then tear it down after it deteriorates. So I'm not willing to go that far whatsoever. I think it's there. We used grants funds to build it. So I think we're obligated to maintain it. And I think it's a good asset for the city. But I think the main question was not so much maintenance and putting funds into it as was there any improvements or enhancements we wanted to put into it to make it better, and specifically to accommodate a kayak business there. And if we don't get any response, then we're going to drop it and just put funds in for maintenance.
Well, my recollection last time, because I think I was asking about it, is, and I can't remember if there was any homework to do or not, is to try to find out if there is any data at all whatsoever. Evan, do I remember that correctly?
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner.
Yes.
We have reached out to Dave Green, who's the owner and operator of Cape Water Tours, and he is gathering that information for us. We did not have it for this meeting, but we should have it for the next meeting.
And what is that information specifically?
That would be-
Just
sure.
FYI, I reached out to Pat Galuzzi, former president of the LRCIA. I never heard a response from her, but I was making inquiry about kayak launches and did they have a vendor or two that they were interested in and price it out or something. So again, I haven't gotten a response, but what kind of information or data are they going to provide us?
Sure. So we asked for information on number of trips that were taken utilizing the water taxi, water tour service, the types of trips, so whether or not it was a taxi service or whether it was a tour, attendance, if they had any information in terms of the number of people who attended each of those tours, and then the frequency in terms of the seasonality. So when are the trips run? How often are they run? What's done in the off-season. So any information that he might have in those lines, we had asked for.
And that focuses on the taxi.
Correct.
But are we going to make any inquiry of the kayak company?
No, because right now we haven't had any kayak service operate at the Canal dock, and we have not reached back out to Quest to inquire about whether or not they would be interested in operating a
I
kayak
thought Liz
rental.
told us last time that there is no interest from any vendor.
Correct.
Did I catch that correctly?
Correct.
There's no interest.
But that, and I think that brings us to the mayor's question is, do we want to make improvements? Because I think the lack of interest has to do with no place to store them and no easy way to get them up and down.
Well, I got 2 calls after our last meeting, very specific, that if I, as a commissioner, voted for another dime on the dock for any kind of improvement like that, it would be ill-advised if I did that. So people are aware, and I don't know how you ever make a business decision of what you should do if you don't have any idea what the need is. I've never been in an organization where you can't assess the need.
I also got similar calls to Commissioner Sharp on that, but one of the comments additional to that of not what their thoughts were about supporting the dock further was that they mentioned to me that there is no signage on the dock to know when it's open or closed. That it's, so, you know, is it open 24 hours a day, or is it locked, or what have you? So I don't know if there is a, there was signage and it's missing, or anything of that nature, or whether we really established that. But that was their comment back to me, that I'd use it if I knew when it was open, because the couple times that they've run past it, the gate has been locked. So just something to follow up on that I told them I'd get back to them, so, thank you.
Thank you.
I
Anybody
think
else?
we need to lease it to somebody. There's got to be some sports entity that will lease it from us, and we'll just cash the check. Otherwise, we're,
It's going to cost us.
Well, what did we do? We did an RFP last
Right.
year, right? At the beginning of summer, we did an RFP. We got we got 2 vendors, Kayak and Quest or somebody else, and we awarded it to the one, and then they did not follow through because they said it was not conducive to running the business. So we tried it, maybe we try it again. But was that a lease? The RFP was a lease?
No, it's just for use. It's for non-exclusive access or use of the dock. So in terms of the water taxi, we did enter into an agreement with them. For the kayak service, we got as far as drafting an agreement and had some communications back and forth, and then it fizzled out from there, mainly from some of the concerns we discussed last time about access, providing access for the kayaks down to the canal, but also emergency response along the canal as well.
So would you like to go for another RFP for a lease? Because I guess I'm a little.
how much is insurance, or how much are you asking us to approve to spend for maintenance, I guess, is the question. then I don't have it right in
For
front of me.
maintenance, it's whatever it takes. Do we have a figure?
Yeah, it's about
Philip?
$2,200 a year just for landscaping.
That's just for
maintenance.
landscaping.
Correct.
So LRCIA said, here's $8,000, 2 years at $4,000. So
Right.
4,000's been on my mind, which seems possible.
Sure.
For the landscaping at 2,200, and then the rest of it for maintenance of the gate and repairs and stuff like that. So that seems reasonable. I guess my biggest hesitation with even going for an RFP is that I'm not sure this whole program was thought out well in terms of, I'm very cautious about having a company or anybody in a kayak carrying it up and down the ramps. I think that's just a disaster waiting to happen.
I have some vague recollection that Pat Clusie had secured funding for the kayak launch. Did she not?
No, well, she may or may not have, but what controls it now is that they have dissolved. They've given us $8,000, and the rest of the money, in other words, depleting the rest of their funds, went to the Greater Lewis Foundation, which, by the way, was written up in the paper recently that we ought to be reaching out right now to see if we can get any funds from them. Because Lewis just did for, I think, dock maintenance and their boardwalk maintenance up there. Greater Lewis Foundation or something, I can't, does anybody remember the name of that group? So the money would be gone, there is no funding there. And what you may be remembering is that Pat contacted me, say, 9 months ago and said, hey, we're interested in doing an RFP for a kayak launch and funding it, but we want the city's blessing. And so that's when I was preparing to bring it to us. She had me postpone doing that for 4 or 5 months, and then the next thing I heard is that they were dissolving. So it's kind of moot. We've gotten all that we can out of the LRCIA. However, now we could go to the Greater something Foundation.
But just curious though, we talk about a launch, kayak launch. Is there any data? I mean, if we're going to go to a grant, we're going to know what we want. Has there ever been any information gathered as to if a launch could be done, where is it going to be, how much does it cost, and all that kind of stuff? I don't want to spend any money on doing that, but does that information ever existed?
And let me just interject.
Yeah.
I'm not saying specifically to get that grant and use it for launch.
Right.
We can use it, I think, for maintenance and more buoys and more this and that, life rings. So not specifically for, because you're absolutely right. We still don't know if there's any appetite for a kayak launch.
To answer Commissioner Gossett's question, though, I can recall that there was a kayak launch in the original design, and then it was removed to cut the budget down. So it was initially designed to have a launch somewhere.
It also initially had an elevator and a kayak launch closer to the
Right.
bridge side. And then those were all removed from the final design, so.
And Mayor, could you just clarify, since we last talked about this, I was very curious if we have any, or has it already been evaluated whether or not there is any legal recourse whatsoever for a failed private partnership that we agreed to?
We'd have to consult Glenn. My guess would be absolutely not. And
Well, then-
the reason why is because we don't have an MOU to stand on, really.
Well, then I just have to make this statement publicly. If we had an MOU that I believe, in listening to part of that discussion with the commissioners, it appeared to be very, very important to the commissioners that we had an MOU with a city solicitor sitting there for all of that discussion, now to be told the MOU is not worth the paper it's written on. First, I would say a credit is due from Glenn sitting here without saying it won't be worth the paper it's written on. Because here at the end of the day, we have bought into a partnership that we've been abandoned.
And I hear you. I don't know that I agree 100% with that, because that's a time when you and I were not on council, I don't believe.
Right.
And so I was just an observer at that time. And I recall a couple people on council at that time just being adamant about going forward without the MOU.
Oh, my.
And I think, I don't think you're wrong in that Glenn, I just can't remember whether he was not forceful or whether he was silent on it. I can't remember, but I do know that some of the commissioners absolutely pushed it through. And I know in my own mind, I would have needed a tight MOU before I could have voted favorably for it.
Well, and the reason I bring it up is for a bigger reason, that this may all be a moot point, that it is what it is. But going forward, if we use the terminology memo of understanding, we might want to reflect back on what happened with this one.
Absolutely.
That they're not, obviously, it's not working out for us, so.
Well, I just share with you kind of maybe an answer to your question. The last paragraph of the MOU states, "The parties acknowledge and agree that this memorandum of understanding represents an expression of the mutual and good faith interactions of the party, but does not in any manner constitute a binding or otherwise enforceable legal contract. Rather, the parties expressly contemplate that this memorandum of understanding may serve as a starting point for the negotiation and drafting of a formal agreement between the parties, which, if and when executed by the parties, shall then and only then memorialize the legally binding and enforceable agreement of the parties with regard to the subject matter of this memorandum of understanding."
Forgive me, I started to laugh while I was listening to that, and maybe that's because it's laughable.
In other
It was
words,
just absolutely worth it. And what I've found interesting in there is your mention that it was to lead to the creation of a contract.
May lead.
In May, so it's all, and that never happened.
Nope.
And that's the point for me, that going forward, we cannot repeat this. And I plan to bring this up with the city solicitor, because I want to ask him directly at his next city solicitor report. I should have done it this morning. I completely blanked that he wasn't going to be here this afternoon. So I think it's only fair to ask him, because the other thing I think we have not yet gotten, and Commissioner Gossett, you tell me if I'm misremembering this, is I thought we were going to be getting a full accounting of every single dime that's been spent on the canal.
I mean, that exists, I believe.
Yeah.
Did a recap of that. I don't think we've seen
But we
it.
haven't talked about it here.
No.
Because it's state funds, it's city funds, it's private funds, and now here we are with an asset that, what do we do with it? To Commissioner Bennett's point.
Do you have that here by any chance?
I would have to look for it. It's been a while
Because
since
I hate to put this on a third budget meeting, but we certainly can.
Well, I mean, it speaks to whether or not taxpayer funds and how we spend them is really important to us. It's important to me.
Well, let's put this, let's conclude discussion now, and let's put that back on budget number 3, so. And to re-articulate, you want to have a full accounting of all the funding furnished by the city to realize the canal dock.
Yes, because if we ever tried to go down the path of making additional improvements, I think we need to know that basis. I don't know if it's 300,000, I don't know if it's 500,000, what is it?
Well, I think we received the money from LRCIA and administered it, didn't we? So we would have a full accounting of all the funds, by my recollection.
We do, and that was my question last time, is officially who owns the dock? We paid for it, I guess.
Yeah.
Does that constitute ownership, I guess?
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
Because you're right, all the monies that were collected through LRICA were grant funded. Right. That then were forwarded to the city, and the city signed the contract for construction and payment, so.
All right, so I'm going to put that on budget number 3 meeting, including presentation of all the financials that we can find.
Thank you.
Anything else?
They
Commissioner
have,
LeGree?
funding's been secured for dredging the Lewis Rehoboth Canal. It'd be interesting, and I'll volunteer to do it, to keep track of that and see how that's coming along and see when that's going to start and stop. And because that might change things, the way we look at it, if the canal was dredged.
Well,
a lot more traffic.
I'm not sure
only-
we hold our breath. I know they're going to start in the north and come this way, but I don't know when they'll ever get down our way enough. But yeah, I think it's worth following, and
I'll keep track.
yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Anything else? We have lost our members of the public, so there's nothing from them. With that, we're finally going to turn it over to Lawrence and Evan for continued discussion and presentations.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things I wanted to touch on, and these are the changes that we've made to the budget since our first meeting, first budget meeting last month. First, we had made adjustments to the Alderman Court revenue, which we thought might have been a little bit higher than it should have been, so that has been adjusted accordingly. We've also inserted the a revenue stream in the Beach Patrol Troop Fund, which was brought up at the last meeting, so we've worked with the Beach Patrol captain on that. We have removed the fireworks expense from the administration department and have placed it in the Parks and Recreation Department, and that is now included within its own account, which is now labeled fireworks. We also have provided a breakout of all in-kind contributions to those organizations. I did have some questions recently about the Chamber of Commerce and what in-kind contributions we provide to them. Just briefly, I'll touch on that. So the city owns the building. They do pay us rent. For 2022, it was $10,600 a month for a total of $42,400 a year.
Quarter.
Thank you. Thank you. a
How
quarter.
much?
$10,600 in 2022 for a quarter.
10,600 per quarter.
Per quarter, yeah.
Okay.
The city is responsible for maintaining the exterior of the building, and it, per the agreement, it's up to the city to determine whether or not the repairs are necessary. We also provide ground maintenance, which includes grass cutting, and then we'll also remove snow whenever it's convenient for us. The chamber is responsible for interior maintenance as well as all utilities, and then we do carry insurance on the building and its fixtures, and the chamber carries a public liability insurance policy. I don't have dollar values for those things because I imagine the landscaping's lumped into our annual agreement that we have with Spizzato. I'm not familiar with any repairs we might have made to the exterior of the building recently. So that's just some anecdotal information I wanted to share based on some of the questions I've had recently. There was a question about the assessors and where that's located within the budget, how much. The assessors are located in the administration department under other professional services. That's approximately $50,000 a year. And then finally, we were asked to provide an organizational chart. That is still under development by the city manager, but we have included the FY23 organizational chart in there for you all. And then finally, there was a question about our Comcast agreement, when that expires. That expires in 2026. That's a non-exclusive agreement, and we get 5% of the gross revenue, which is about $180,000 annually. And that is largely the changes that have been made from the previous meeting. I can answer any questions that you might have.
Evan, my recollection when we did Rehoboth Avenue Streetscape is that a committee was formed to work with cable companies. They selected Comcast because of the extreme cost and to be borne by the utility undergrounding everything. And I think that was a 10-year program. So I think that was renewed. That would have been, when would that have been? 2005 maybe?
Okay.
So 2015. So now we're at 7 or 8 year. When is the contract up again with Comcast?
2026 is when it's up.
2026. So that's about 10 and 10-ish, somewhere in there. Just curious. I keep hearing from folks in Bethany Beach that have what, Mediacom? Do you know what you have down south?
Bethany
Mediacom.
has MediaCom, and my understanding is this year they're going to give a choice. I don't know whether it's this year, it's coming up, that Comcast is going to have an opportunity to serve customers.
So both of them would be able to
And
compete with each
the
other.
service level and response of MediaCom has incredibly changed all of a sudden. We can't figure that.
Change for the better?
Oh, yeah.
Because I've
They had the
only
worst,
heard bad
They
things.
had a reputation of pretty poor service, and now you're getting a lot more attention. I think there's competition
Because
coming.
of competition, maybe. All right. Thank you very much.
I think Comcast, I think, originally did Sea Colony, and I think that the city, basically every town meeting you go to in Bethany, there's discussion on the cable service. So I think people are going to be a little happier.
That's everything I had for an update from the previous budget meeting. Next, we wanted to touch on, at the last meeting, we talked about our general fund revenue. So for the start of this meeting, we wanted to touch on enterprise fund revenue. I'd like to turn it over to Bert to explain the budgeted revenues and why we have budgeted the amounts that we have.
I'll start with the water revenue. That's pretty straightforward.
Can we give pages and reference even line numbers? And then when you say it, maybe pause a little bit, give us time to
Okay,
find the thing.
It's page 3 of your budget package, under the revenue section.
That's 3 at the bottom. Okay.
Okay, you'll see the water revenue is fairly easy to understand. The metered water in town and the metered water out of town are major sources. The out of town revenue is higher because we charge twice as much. Breezewood, we charge 1.5 times the city rate. They had a special agreement because when they agreed to accept the city's water, they already had installed equipment out there. So that's why the Breezewood community gets a 1.5 time. Then there's the Dewey Beach Water Agreement, and that's really conducted through the county, and it was renegotiated last year for a 3-year period. And we sell water to the community of Dewey Beach on a wholesale basis. We have a pipe that essentially runs down Route 1 to Dewey Beach, and I believe our current rate's a little over $5 per 1,000 gallons. And so you'll see we're budgeting $949,000 for that. The other 2 sources are the water cap out of town and the water cap in town. That's basically when you add new service, there's essentially an impact fee, and it's relatively small, but on a total basis. I'll move on to the wastewater unless there's questions on the water revenue.
Are we gaining meters from out of town? Do we steadily get more and more, or is that holding fairly steady?
Are we getting more customers?
More customers out of town?
Well, I think, yeah, Rehoboth's built out, so I think typically you're going to see the growth is going to be the out of town. But there are a lot of twists and turns on the out of town issues. Because we're serving a community and we don't have total control, we find sometimes that there's different things that go on that have to be corrected. You may have, the wrong meter hookup, and there are a lot of small issues, but I think bottom line, the results are pretty good. But your future growth is probably going to be out of town.
Because they're building out there, and there has to be opportunities. So I thought, maybe we're gaining a few customers.
Well, it's a good source of revenue because they're paying, you know,
Yeah.
more for service than, you know, as far as running the department and paying their share of running the department, they're paying more than the in-town customers
Yeah.
because there's more of them, and they're paying a higher rate.
Bert,
Keep it up.
can you explain the restricted revenue?
What that is, there are three sources you'll see on there. You'll see the CD interest, water cap fee. That's the money that we're going to earn on our CDs this year, the 149,000. That, if you add that to the water cap fees, which are restricted, and to the in-town water cap fees, if you add them up, they'll total up to 193,238. So we're essentially just backing it out and saying, that's restricted, we can't use it for running our
Thank you.
facility. The wastewater, I can address that. This is probably the one source of revenue that's least understood by people in our community. It's a little involved, and stop me if you have any questions along the way. The metered sewer service is fairly straightforward. That is only in-town residents, and they're billed at a rate that the commissioners approve and establish, and that rate is multiplied times the volume of metered water that goes in there. So essentially, we use whatever water goes in there into the house as the volume times the rate. So we're budgeting $2,825,000 this year. The other sources of revenue we have are a little more complicated, and we have an agreement with the county for Dewey Beach and Henlopen Acres, and the customers in those areas are billed on a flat rate by the county, but it's a cost-sharing agreement. So what we really do, based upon flows, we bill the county 4 times a year, same way you would do estimated tax payments. And we use the volume of water and multiply it using the budget that's been established for the year. And we allocate those costs based upon flows. So we send them a bill. We send them 4 bills a year. At the end of the year, after the audit is completed, we figure out what the difference is. Do we owe the county money or do they owe us money? And we settle up at the end of the year. But again, it is a cost-sharing agreement. So it's been very helpful to the city. The North Shores agreement is just a little different because when the agreements were established, when they did the new water plant back in the 80s, North Shores wasn't part of the county. It's an unincorporated community. So they had a separate agreement with the city, which we followed to this day. And basically, it uses the same data, the same costs to allocate to North Shores. There are a few twists and turns that with North Shores, we bill, part of the agreement was we would bill their customers directly on an EDU basis. So there are about 250 EDUs in North Shores. So once we figure out the total cost to the community using the flows of the water or of the sewer, we go ahead and just simply divide by the number of EDUs, and we bill the customers on that basis. Now, what's happened? You'll notice that the North Shores revenue is higher. What's happened when we originally built the outfall? The county paid for the engineering costs that were done prior to the time we completed the project on a 40% basis, and city paying 60%. Well, North Shores paid nothing at that time. So now that these capital improvements have been completed, North Shores is sharing the debt based upon the annual flow percentages that we calculate at the end of the year. So it's a little, it's logical, but it's a little involved. And I think that there has been, I think, an interest in North Shores for us to do it, to bill in a different manner, and because they have condos that are paying the same flat fee that, people in 7, 8 bedroom houses are paying. But, our position's been if the community wants a different billing method, we can give them the water readings and they can take over the billing responsibility. But as it is now, it's a simple method, and we haven't really had any serious discussions on changing how that billing method works. I expressed to one of the representatives of the homeowners association out there that, we send one bill to the county each year, each quarter for Dewey, and one bill for Henlopen Acres, and we're sending, which covers about 5,000 customers. And I said, we really wanted to avoid a complicated billing arrangement for 235 EDUs. So commissioners may have a different opinion on that at some day, but right now that's where we are. I think they have an office. They could certainly take over the billing if they wanted to. And but as far as the revenue source, it has gone up in North Shores primarily because the debt service is in there now. And we've notified the customers, each customer in their each EDU in the community receives a letter for us telling them what the rate change has been for the new year. And so that's maybe more than what you wanted to hear, but if you want me to answer any questions on our agreements, I certainly can do so.
Anything, commissioners? All good. Thank you, Bert.
All right.
So next, if there's no other questions on enterprise fund revenue, we can talk about the streets department. That begins on page 16. It goes into page 17 as well, the support document.
Page number at the bottom.
Yes.
This looks like it.
That's it. And just a couple things I wanted to mention, and then we can answer any questions you have on the streets department. You will see that the salary account has come down a bit. That's the account 501,000 has come down a bit from FY23. That's because we have removed 3 mechanics from this department and have created a new department, which is fleet services.
What was the motivation behind doing that?
Currently, the fleet maintenance manager is we have decided to pull him out and make him a department head because he is responsible for overseeing the entire city fleet, not just the streets department. So we thought it made sense to break him out into his own department and then be able to better capture costs associated with the city fleet and maintaining the city fleet. Right now, it was all lumped into streets department, so it was hard to capture some of the costs of the administration.
And that fleet is the entire fleet of the city?
That's correct.
Excluding police department?
That includes the police department, yes.
So all vehicles, building and licensing, parking, everybody?
Correct. And every department does have a vehicle maintenance account, which we are able to capture some costs associated with that, but mainly by breaking fleet out into its own department, we can now keep track of salaries, overtime, insurance.
If I could also just say, it also takes a little bit of pressure off of Art, our fleet manager, working for one department head. So there was a feeling among some department heads that they got undue priority in the streets department vehicles over some of the other departments. So this eliminates that perception.
That's the intention.
Yes.
Thank you.
See, the next account I wanted to just talk to was 511,000. That's engineering. $270,000 is currently in the budget, and that is for stormwater management plan, our Kircher annual paving program support, Beacon Engineering updates our GIS system, CCTV of our stormwater infrastructure, and then also any work associated with implementation of the stormwater utility.
Sorry, is there traffic study there, or where is the traffic study?
The traffic study is back in administration under other professional services.
Thanks.
I had to close my eyes there for a second. The next account, 511-400, is contractual services, $260,000. That is where we capture costs for Blue Hen, as well as Clean Delaware and Big Belly Solar, our solar compacting receptacles.
When is our contract up with Blue Hen? Did we do a 3-year program?
Yes.
2 years ago, so maybe
Yes.
1 year.
And
We don't want to get caught with our pants down again where we bid it out.
Right.
And they were the only ones to bid. We were forced to go with them essentially. Right.
Is it a 3-year and a 2-year?
There was options, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 2 3-year terms, and then we were getting near the end of our first 3rd year.
Right.
I think we're getting into our second, 3rd year. And then we had recently renegotiated that contract as well. You recall they asked for an increase in the cost per unit, per collection, and we were able to negotiate with them and bring that cost down.
Big Belly is contractual service for the monitoring system?
That is for the whole back-end system that we have, which allows us to receive alerts whenever they're full, but then also just the cost of having those receptacles. I don't know if they provide, I think they do also like if it's not annual, every few years they come out and do a whole cleaning and they'll replace any parts that might be faulty or
You
anything.
don't own them?
We do not own them.
We're leasing them?
Yes.
Okay.
Are they worth it? I mean, you know.
Well, that was going to be my question. We were adding them each year for a while, and now we're not. Does that mean they're not
You know,
working?
when I
and-
toured a lot of the boardwalk towns in New Jersey, it was early on that they bought or they got them there. And when I went back, Jay, 10 years later, I don't think we saw a Big Belly. They were gone. And whether it was just close proximity to the, because they were on the boardwalk, close proximity to the beach, to the sand or whatever, or we never ascertained why they got rid of them, but
So what we have found out over the course of 5 years of using them anyway, is they're very good if you can put them over in an isolated area that you don't have to go to already every day. So when we put them on, we first looked at maybe the ocean blocks. Because then if we didn't have to go down there with a trash truck, you know, it would save a lot of congestion and time and effort. But you always had to go down that street anyway, so the trash truck was always going down there. So it really didn't save us anything. But the places where we have found them to be useful is like we have one out on the bike trail because we don't go there every day. So now we can get the report that says it's X% full, and we can go out and do that one. There's some in a couple of the parks that are that way as well, that we don't have to go there every day. But we just found that in the places where we were going anyway, it didn't really serve us much of a purpose.
So are we going to reduce the number, or is there any look at that?
I don't know that we've discussed that.
Okay.
The Public Works Director would not renew them.
I just appreciate that.
Thanks.
Let's see.
The one on the bike trail stays remarkably clean. I'm always amazed that looks pretty good every time I go by. How often do we?
You'll recall that before they did the ribbon cutting and we had it stationed out there, it had been graffitied up,
Yes.
right, just for the ceremony.
Yes.
And then once we got that off, we
Then-
haven't really had any instances since then. But everybody's out there in their bikes and stuff, and there's this.
Nobody cared. There wasn't anybody taking pictures of it. No use decorating it.
Right.
Other than that, expenses remained relatively flat or under the current fiscal year budgeted amount. We do have some capital outlays, which we'll hold off on reviewing those because we do have a PowerPoint at the end, and we'll just recap all of the Public Works capital outlays in that presentation.
Very good.
So we can entertain any questions on the Streets Department.
Just 515-200 conferences and training. We dropped it by 13,000. Is that?
So last year, we were able to send 3 individuals to Texas to be trained on how to operate and maintain that street sweeper that was new for us. So that was a kind of a one-shot deal for the larger expense for last year.
And then auto insurance dropped by 15. Is that moved to fleet services or?
What account was that? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
Commissioner.
auto insurance 516500. Is that still?
From 30 to 15.
Yes, we will take a look at that. Looks like we don't have much so far year to date, so we'll take a look at that. It might be attributed to pulling out some of the vehicles. We do have at least one, maybe two vehicles in the fleet services department that might have been pulled out as part of that.
And then storm sewer maintenance, we dropped it by 10,000. Is that, am I looking at the right one? I got last,
Storm sewer maintenance.
What number you
20
got?
to 10.
Right, so-
Top of page 17. 520800.
So last year, we had an item in to try to fix the drainage problem down at the streets department. So that's why it was a little higher last year for that. That was done very recently and seems to have worked just fine. So we didn't see a need to throw it back in for next year.
If there's no further questions on streets, we will move on to fleet. And fleet is page 18 of the support document. So again, we have broken out 3 mechanics from the fleet management department into their own account. Just a couple things wanted to mention here. Minor equipment and supplies. We have taken 17,000 from the streets department, which was originally budgeted in the streets department. That includes $10,000 worth of supplies, $4,000 for a power washer, and $3,000 for a transmission jack. Under contractual services, it
Evan?
does, yes.
Before you go, on that, the equipment and supplies, this is kind of a general budget question I'm curious about, and can use supplies as like a, an example.
Yeah.
As we get each year to the end of the budget cycle, are departments instructed to buy whatever supplies they might anticipate for the next year, rather than leaving money on the table?
I can answer that if you like.
Go ahead.
Why is that funny, Kevin?
Well, Evan and I talked about this. You know, my experience with the state of Delaware about 45 years ago was that people had spend outs at the end of the year. I've told our department heads, you know, we're basically zero-based budgeting. Obviously, we look at the prior year's actuals, but I said there's no need in buying a bunch of materials you don't need. We're a small enough city that we can work with you and make sure you have what you need. So we don't have a formal policy on spend outs, but there's no incentive to spend your budget at the end of the year. You know, obviously, in some of these state governments, they figure if they reduce the budget, then you know, they might not get future monies that they want. And but we'll budget them for what they need, and they have close conversations with the city manager and myself on what justifies that line item.
So for example, if this line item ended the year and only 10,000 was spent, what happens to the 7?
Goes away. We start from the beginning. We don't do any carryovers.
Wait a minute, goes away, does that mean it goes into the general fund?
If the money's not spent, it's going to stay in the general fund. I mean, if you have that's the way the whole budget works.
Yeah, I
mean,
know that.
If you don't,
I just wanted to hear you say it. That is the way it works.
well, yeah, really, if you look at our budget in our audit report, they have a section in the back on budget versus actual. And, you know, we're pretty close if you look at it, but on an individual line item basis, you might have a variance. But we're very close.
Okay, Bert.
If the bottom
Kevin,
line keeps
stop
growing.
laughing.
Well, I will tell you one thing.
I asked Evan, have you been sitting in on some of our department budget meetings?
Uh-oh.
Because we have this discussion every time. Where does the money go?
Well, you look at the bottom line. We had $6 million of it didn't go somewhere last year.
Making us money for sure.
Did you just say we had $6 million?
If you look at our budget report, you'll see that the city's change in fund balances increased
Okay.
by a large amount. So we didn't give that away to.
That's for Hurricane Tony.
Cool.
When the next disaster
Okay.
hits us.
That would be Hurricane Antoinette. So, okay, back to you.
That's pretty much it. I mean, our policy is to budget for what we need and not do spend outs at the end of the year.
Question back to fleet services. In that 147,000 salaries, is that a fleet manager and
Two mechanics.
two mechanics? So a total of 3 bodies?
Yes.
Okay. And they're moving basically from, you're just pulling them out of streets? Okay.
I'm going to assume that's all we need. Really?
Yeah.
We've-
They're in good shape.
Okay, thank you.
Just briefly on minor equipment and supplies, Art does a really good job of keeping a lot of parts in stock. I think we've done a good job over the years by trying to streamline our fleet, have one consistent manufacturer, one consistent make, model, you name it. So he is able to stock up on some of those parts that he knows he needs all the time and get those in inventory. He's also brought in-house some work previously that we had contracted out. So he continues to look to do that any opportunity he gets. The next line, 511,400, is contractual services / recycling. Please excuse that. This was a previous department that we are reusing. I think this was previously the refuse department. So we are reusing that for fleet services, so we will rename that account. Contractual services, we have utilized a program known as Mitchell One, which is basically a fleet maintenance management software, which allows us to keep track of our inventory as well as the maintenance costs associated with maintaining the fleet through a software program. Previously, everything was done by paper, so there's filing cabinets down at the streets or at the fleet garage with previous records. So now we have been able to transition to Mitchell One, and that gives us the ability, again, to track all that stuff electronically. That program also offers wiring diagrams, instructional diagrams on how to diagnose common issues and how to resolve those issues as well. So that has been a big benefit to the department down there. And then there's also $2,500 in Snap-on scanners used to also diagnose check engine lights or other issues with equipment.
Are tankers included in fleet services, or is that separate?
Yes, that's included.
Included?
No, well, the vehicles are in wastewater,
Wastewater, okay.
if that's what you were asking.
The actual vehicles themselves,
And then repairs to those would go out of the wastewater vehicle maintenance line. So the things there would just be the vehicles that belong to the fleet department.
Right.
So that,
but certainly maintenance and repairs of those would fall underneath the purview of the fleet department. Maintenance contracts, one of the things that we have in there is to inspect the bay doors that we have. They're relatively large bay doors down at the garage there, so we want to do a safety inspection of those as well as inspection of some other bay doors that we have at other departments. So that would just be the cost associated with that. And that's everything I had for fleet. If there are no questions, we will move on to comfort stations. That is on page 19.
Just one question, I think it's too late, but in streets, do we still operate the recycling center there on Oyster House?
we do,
Where does
Commissioner.
that fall? cost for employees?
Within this, we have a guy that's dedicated out there 3 days a week.
In streets?
In streets.
Okay, thank
He's one of the part-timers in streets.
Years ago, we had separate departments for streets and trash. And I was opposed to that because we're using the same labor force to perform both services. So what we were doing, we were using estimated percentages to allocate wages and all that. And it seemed, didn't make any sense to me because you have two departments reporting expenses and both of them are probably not as accurate as they would be if you just put them all together and had it as one department. I think that's a better way to go.
So next, the comfort stations, again, that is line 19. Line 511, 400 contractual services, that is BB&T cleaning, so the cleaning service that we utilize for the public restrooms. We also have account 52300, which is building maintenance. We have an amount of 78,300. That includes any electric repairs, plumbing repairs. There's also a cost to repaint the interior of the restrooms included in there, replacing the faucets, a water heater at Delaware Avenue, and to clean the exhaust fans.
Evan, my dream, if you will, has always been for the public restrooms at Delaware, Baltimore, and Rehoboth Avenue to have an attendant, male and a female, at each one of those. I think, Jay, maybe you'd agree with me that when we walk the boardwalk towns in New Jersey, the restrooms that had attendants were pretty darn clean. In fact, they were almost consistently clean. I know it's a big expense, but where are we at with individual attendants in the restrooms? Do we have 6 on duty from opening to close?
6.
How did it work out so far?
I thought so too. Okay. We'd have to go back to the contract and see exactly, but I didn't hear anything from this summer, any complaints about attendance, but we'll go back and confirm.
Anytime I ever went in one, someone was always there.
Did you go through all 3 of them at the same time?
No.
If I recall, the hard part was always being able to have a female attendant, at least one during the time that they're open.
Yeah, I didn't try to go into
Correct.
into
And that
one.
had always been the harder part of the deal, trying to find a female that could be available at each location. I think he was able to get a female on duty throughout the day, but not one for each station.
That the onus is on the contractor, right? Subcontractor to do that, if we specify it. But you're saying they're having trouble with,
Correct.
with labor? Again, that, to me, that's my ideal. And it's, Boardwalk Committee did analysis of it, you know, that there's a benefit to it because it's cleaner. There's when people go in, try to think of committing a crime or something, there's an attendant there that deters that, and et cetera, many other reasons.
Is that only during like prime season, or is that year-round? Because we open.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think if I recall correctly, and I will verify and come back to you with it, for the main part of the season, like through Labor Day, they would be there, somebody there all the time. And then at some point in time after Labor Day, then there was one available and they would rotate around.
Right.
Until they closed them, which was, after Sea Witch, I guess. Or maybe around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, October
Depending on the
30th
weather.
through November 30th, there's one attendant. And then all other times, usually during the season, there's one male and one female attendant on duty.
At each?
Not at each.
Yeah, see, that's where I have a little trouble with that, I guess.
So is that, this 185 budget for contractual services, is that all for them, or?
Yes.
So if we, that would be like $500,000 for staffing, is that right? 600,000 or 500,000? Because this is just one male and one female. Right? So we got 6.
That's always,
additional 4.
it's always been the trouble, the funding part of it. I can't disagree.
Are we gonna keep the Baltimore Comfort Station heated now all year round? What are our plans?
That is the plan
Yeah.
for when that's built, especially because we have the family restroom going
Yes.
in there. And that would be the only family restroom that would be open year-round and heated.
Okay. It's amazing how you can, you can see if somebody with little kids coming out of the restroom, and you can ask her, say, how clean is that? They'll tell you. They have no qualms. It's not difficult to find out what the condition of the family restroom is. They'll tell you.
We just may have to monitor it, but again, for me, having clean restrooms is key to success of our boardwalk period.
We do, and I'm looking at the contract now. I apologize, I'm not familiar with the details of it, but so we do have 1 male and 1 female attendant on duty, and this is from June 19th through September 30th, and that would be for this year, 2023. 1 male and 1 female. And then in addition, for each Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we have 1 additional male and 2 additional females, and that's for Delaware Avenue and Baltimore Avenue. So those additional attendants monitor both Delaware and Baltimore.
Weekends.
Correct.
You have projected, is that the 185?
Yes.
That
Yep,
number?
that includes. Yep.
We can afford that, I think. Anyway, I'm happy with it. And the capital outlays is just continuation of design and initiating the contract and.
Intent would be to go to construction next fall,
Yes.
since the season's over.
Is there any thought to break that out between beach patrol and comfort stations for the actual, because it's one building, but it's dual uses and that kind of stuff?
Well, we did not attempt to do that.
There's some thought to doing that?
And we're also going to go through the capital improvement program in totality, right?
I'm going to ask the question. It's not going to be popular. Have we ever considered, for the summertime, trying to bring in restrooms on a trailer, one for all the way south near Poodle Beach and one north?
Well, you know, the boardwalk committee, when I was chair, we did an analysis of that. I don't know that you did. And we ended up, one of the things we were looking at was sufficiency of restrooms, public restrooms on the boardwalk. And we indicated that we thought, yeah, there needed to be more restrooms on the boardwalk, and we kind of handed it over to the city manager. But one thing we said, and it was specific to the south, is that there is no opportunity to put anything down there, period. And that kind of shut it down because, Commissioner Legree, you live on that street. There's not one person, do you still own a house down there?
Yes.
So maybe we can ask this property owner here, do you want a porta potty or, I mean, there are some very nice mobile restrooms, I mean, that you use that are just beautiful and they're clean when they get clean, but
Well, as
but
far as-
nobody wants them.
As far as putting a restroom at the end of any of those South Rehoboth streets, I think the opposition would be just
Incredible.
overwhelming. I mean, Jay would be probably leading the charge out
I'd be leading the pack.
but I'd be behind him.
Alternatively, you've got people going up in the dunes.
Yes, less so since some houses are being built there across the street from Jay, but
The bushes are really well used in the spring. I mean, it's pretty regularly. But I don't know what you do. The state won't let us get east of the boardwalk.
In the Poodle Beach thing, I mean, I understand that, and I don't know what kind of arrangement could be made there because I don't think you could put one on the beach, could you? Or I don't know.
I don't think on the beach, I don't think DENREC would allow a mobile, even a mobile unit on the beach. and we'd have to take it off every night when the beach closes and put it back. So I mean, we have given a good amount of thought to it. If you have any ideas, I mean,
No, I
it's,
just thought one of the mobile, one of the nice mobile ones could potentially go on the beach, but if Denrec, you're sure would be against it.
yeah, they're not going to allow it. I've always said, people down there have to anticipate when they got to go and start walking early. I mean, I don't know of any others.
And those nice ones are typically plumbed, so you'd have a direct drop into a sewer somewhere, into a manhole, so it would then flow out, as opposed to having to come suck it out each day.
Okay.
Like if you've seen them at the golf tournaments, those kind of nice ones, yeah, they're hooked up with water and sewer.
If we owned a lot down there, I'd say maybe it's worth investigating, because Jay, you and I went through 1920 boardwalk towns in New Jersey plus others, and we saw many, and I think we took a lot of pictures of many public restroom buildings that were nice. They were beautiful. They're not these ugly cinder block things and everything, and they fit a beach style. And they're smallish. They don't have to be as big as the Delaware Avenue facility.
And they're available. We have a narrow boardwalk, and we can't go to the ocean side, and the beach side is private. The west side's all privately owned.
The only vacant lot on your street is across the street from you, that corner unit.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's,
$2 million.
Same guys owned that for umpty up years. And if you go 50 yards south, it's out of the city limits, and those people they even call me.
Well, isn't Poodle Beach outside city limits?
No, it's not.
Kind of half and half.
Just really rough. It's really tough. The closest restrooms, and this is one of the reasons we really tried to expand the Delaware restrooms, because it's the closest thing we have to the south.
I'm just coming to your house when I have to go to the bathroom next.
Just leave a quarter by the ligustrum bushes. That's all you need to do.
That all?
A quarter, I
give
think
you
you
all.
need to rethink. That's
Yeah.
worth more than a quarter.
Have we ever, Evan, have we ever done, I don't know, maybe, have we ever looked at what it costs us overall to operate for the summer for tourism? In other words, if I just my quick math on this for the clean restrooms at 336,000, if that's the operating, so that's 112,100 parking hours.
I don't think we have ever done any type of analysis.
Okay. 'Cause I just think we should see how much we put out for restrooms and beach patrol and all the other things that we offer for our free beach.
I think that's an
what
interesting
that
study.
costs.
It's an interesting study. I think it's even bigger than that, though.
Oh, I'm
because
just doing, that's
we-
just parking.
we-
I mean, that's just this clean, to
I
have
mean, we
clean
only need
restrooms.
one water tower. We don't
Yeah.
need two, if we weren't a summer resort kind of a thing.
We've added in bandstand and the programs. And when you start adding that stuff up, we really do a lot of stuff for the tourists.
I just
Clean
get
up the
frustrated
streets.
because we get dinged with saying we want to raise parking 50 cents or you want to do something, but when you look at what it actually costs for us to have a clean, safe city,
Well, it's
someone
kind
has
of
to
like
pay
what the
for
fire
it.
department just
Right.
did, break it out of what it costs to dress out a fireman.
Yeah.
Make us all feel bad. Make us all feel like cheapskates.
But
is what it
on the flip side, I mean, as a resident, I look at how much we pay in property taxes, and I feel like it's a pretty good deal. I mean, if you look at it on the flip side, I'm not saying that people that visit here shouldn't pay their fair share.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of free services.
No, but I was doing the math when all the organizations that are here at 335,000 or whatever, we were looking to give them. And you could say, okay, we'll just say every house gives $90 of the 3,500, that would cover everything. End of discussion. But I don't think we've got stormwater coming up, we've got other things. I just think we keep going back to the residents to pay these things rather than having everyone share the burden. That's my only thought here.
We're going to have a chance coming right up, and I'm going to remember your words.
No, I mean, I don't think we can keep going to the residents all the time to pay for everything.
Well, there was a discussion of impact fees or the mention of impact fees, and what thought in my mind is, for instance, like Rehoboth Avenue, we've got new hotels coming on board. And right now in that footprint where Grotto's is coming on, there may be 15 toilets. Now that's going to increase to 60 toilets and 60 showers and a swimming pool. And, you know, is there any opportunity for an impact fee of that? Because that's going to be more water to supply and more water to wastewater and that type of thing. So I don't know if we look at those opportunities. There was never the opportunity to look at those before. We didn't have those presented to us, but those kind of issues for impact fees to, you know, is the capacity for the water lines are enough for the water that's going to be required to furnish 60 guest rooms, and then across the street another 40. I don't know, but, you know, those are the types of things that perhaps that we should have consultation with the developer just to find out. I don't know.
Even if nothing gets done, even if, how am I want to say this? There's going to be a lot of infrastructure that's going to have to be sooner or later in Wilmington and Baltimore, whether we do the streetscape or not. That's coming up, and these. I mean, I've just looked at the Baltimore. You know, when we're going to put parking spots in there behind on this side of the comfort station, we're going to be digging that whole street up. What a wonderful time to do other stuff, if we want to do other stuff. The same thing for Wilmington. I don't know what Mr. Treos is going to do on that corner, but the Bellhaven's they're going to have a lot of infrastructure coming in. And we're going to be supplying them stormwater, wastewater, and fresh water. So we're going to have to, there's a lot of infrastructure impact fees that are coming up.
Yeah, and the fire department said they've got to buy a new truck because
That too.
they have to access these hotels now because of
That too, because
way
of the size.
they
And
can't get on the boardwalk because the boardwalk won't support the truck, but, you know, we've got to supply. Anyway, just, I don't know whether we have thought bubbles around, like, looking at those potential sources of expenses and revenues of how we balance it.
Yeah, but, I mean, we're probably going to be getting multiple $1 million in just permit fees for those projects.
That's a one-time deal, though.
Yeah, but an impact fee is usually a one-time deal.
Well, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Maybe
keep
we
on
should,
giving.
you know, look at something greater.
I'm going to ask an unpopular question. Mayor, are we trying to adjourn at 4:30? Or is that a popular question? I'm just trying to figure out how much further we have to go today.
I'm trying to get through this. Can we finish by 4:45 or 5? How much more do you gauge? All depends on how much we talk.
Well, I appreciate the discussion, but I'm not sure we can solve all of this today.
No, but I'd like to get through at least all the other, just to introduce it.
Oh, I don't disagree, but all of this other extraneous discussion, I don't know that it's completely germane to what's on these pages right now today.
these are good discussions.
They're excellent discussions, but
Well, let's,
John Wayne has spoken.
Evan, let's go ahead and move on then. Because I'd like to get through presenting everything today.
Yep, and we have 2.4 million budgeted in capital outlays for Comfort Station, so we will come back to that at the end. The next department is the Building and Grounds Department. That begins on page 20. I'll just highlight maybe 3 lines from this department. First line is 506-500, minor equipment and supplies. Sure, this is spare parts for City Hall, light fixtures, tools and batteries, plumbing equipment, and also other spare equipment.
$50,000 worth?
For which one?
For
Minor equipment and supplies.
What line number are you looking at?
I'm sorry,
506-500.
506-500. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
506-500.
No.
Well, it went from 17.5 to 6.980, like 50,000.
What I hadn't mentioned yet is kind of the reorganization that happened as a result of bringing on a direct hire facility manager for City Hall, the City Hall complex. So all that is now rolled into here. So all those things, and I'm not really sure where they were captured in previous budgets because it really didn't fall under me, but that all now it gets rolled up into buildings and grounds. So all the things like lights that we just fixed in here, thermostats, all these little swamp coolers, those kind of things. That's all now captured in here.
So where was it before?
That I don't know.
Yeah, I know before we had Asset Management Alliance, which was a pretty large expense, and that was for staff. I don't know if that covered any of the minor equipment or any of the supplies for that. But that expense has been eliminated now, and we've brought on Luke as the facilities manager. Before, it might have been, some of it might have been captured in building and grounds, some of it might have been in administration.
So could I interpret that by saying that we've been spending $50,000 a year on maintenance equipment in this building?
I think that would be very easy to spend. Remember these lights that were blinking a couple weeks ago? Unfortunately, they don't make those lights anymore. So what we have to do, we had to replace the entirety of the building. And so you're talking about kind of a semi-emergency basis. They had to be ordered and flown in and installed and all that stuff. And it's just because we wanted the room ready within 2 weeks, and they did a fantastic job doing that. But these things are costly.
Right, and the building's now how many years old? 4. Ooh, much older than that.
No, Sharon helped build it. She was here 8 years, so it's what, 7?
Right.
7-ish years or something.
Okay.
So,
Is there money in here for the build-out of the third floor at all? No.
What about the build-out for an assistant city manager office?
Which would be the third floor, right? Is that,
I'm just asking.
yeah.
Better not.
I'm not understanding what's so funny about that. And why am I out of the loop?
There's no loop. What do you,
Why is it funny? Why was that question funny?
I don't know.
So what's the answer to it?
here's his
I'm
office right
starting to
here.
lose my temper.
Join the club.
It's irony.
What's next?
No. What's
Oh,
the answer to the question?
We do not have anything in the budget for third floor fit out or an office space for the assistant city manager.
Is that the right thing to do?
Well, there are spaces that I can utilize easily, and I do not believe that, in my opinion, an office at this point is a top priority.
Okay, thank
There's a
you.
location over in the communications department. I can always utilize conference rooms if need be. I've got a location currently, so that's not a priority.
Commissioners and Mayor, if you don't
Difficult would
mind,
it be to finish that big?
Just takes money.
Yeah, but how, I mean, what are we talking about?
Well, didn't Sharon budget 100,000 before?
depends on what you want to do with it. So the original was a couple offices and a meeting room in the middle. It was right in the vicinity of 100,000 because they had to realign the kind of the mechanical systems, the fire protection systems. We've done some of that out of Hyde recently because Luke has actually occupied that space as unfinished as it is, and he's doing some self-help things, to make it habitable for him. But it would be on that order still of 100,000, probably to outfit it with, like I said, a couple of offices and then a meeting space.
Commissioners and Mayor, if I may, what I'd like to do is come back to you on budget meeting number 3 with a proposal to use some unassigned reserve funds for the build-out of that third floor, as well as the Assistant City Manager office somewhere on the first floor, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Again, I just express my opinion. I think we have created and hired an assistant city manager, and to not give them the proper tools to do their job from perspective. If you want to meet with the city manager, we can go sit in the hall, or, well, let me see if a conference room is available. I just don't think that sets the standard that we're trying to accomplish here as a city of Rehoboth, which is my opinion, and that's it.
Completely agreed.
So let me ask a question along that line. Would we then be able to utilize the upstairs for Lynn as well, and then that other building, which I think is completely unnecessary, could be a revenue source, renting it out?
I don't know. We'll have to get back to you on that one. I don't know the answer to that.
I just don't know why we have a building for one person when we have a third floor.
Right. It was initially built for Main Street, right? That's why.
I think that was the original plan, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want everybody coming in on the third floor to get a parking permit?
Kevin's like, leave me alone up there.
Third floor is nice the way it is right now.
Next.
Just two other accounts I want to bring your attention to. Again, this is in the Building and Grounds Department, page 20. Towards the bottom line, 52300 is building maintenance. In here, I touched briefly on the Chamber of Commerce building, how we're responsible for exterior maintenance. Within that same agreement, we're also responsible for exterior maintenance of the Visitor Center. So in this account, we have budgeted painting of the Visitor Center. There's also some for this building, electric and carpet repairs. We need to power wash the building and the windows, and then do a new fresh air assembly and control systems.
This is at the visitor center?
This is
Here.
here. The painting of the Visitor Center was the only thing for that building, but that is captured in
Exterior
this
carpentry,
account.
but, yeah.
And are there any improvements or maintenance contracts due for the Main Street, or the building we're using for Main Street now? Nothing? Okay. No.
And on this building, I'm sorry, I didn't catch, did you say anything about carpet
Yes.
on first floor where it's dirty? And
Yes.
the paint on the walls that is all scuffed and tacky? Thank you.
Included in this, is there the cleaning and repainting of the tower?
Water department.
Water department.
Water department.
But it is included in it somewhere.
Is that an annual thing? Because we've, I think, all voiced that that's the focus of the media cameras and needs to be an annual cleaning process. Thank you.
One line up, or a couple lines up, just curious, I know the price of fuel has gone up, but heating fuel more than doubled. What do we use heating fuel for here in the building? Is that?
Line 519000.
Convention hall, kitchen.
Yeah, propane. Yeah,
Propane?
propane.
For kitchen?
I don't know, they come fill that thing up every month. Kitchens for sure, right?
Well, that's one of the things is,
Yeah.
is the kitchen. They use propane. I'm not sure what else.
We can look into that and bring more information
I
back at
just-
the next meeting.
Curious, I mean, the kitchen's used to compare that to convention center rental, you know, if there's revenue coming in, I don't know. Maybe we should add a fuel surcharge if they're gonna use the kitchen.
Yeah, but it doesn't add up, the budgeted amount and then how much we've used so far from April to October.
Yeah, we'll get that. Propane contract.
All right, Evan.
Maintenance contracts, line 52700, 45,000. That is for heating and air in the convention center, servicing all of the individual LG units that we have, our boiler contract for the boiler in the basement, the fridge and freezer contract that we have, and the mechanical lift contract. So those are all existing contracts that we have. And then we have capital outlays, which we'll discuss at the end during the presentation.
Evan, if they're all existing contracts, why the increase?
We might have, I know at least, I think the LG units in particular, we found that some of the necessary services were not included in the original contract, at least when Luke, I think, had gone through. He has done a really great job of pulling all of our existing contracts and figuring out what is under contract, what isn't, and anything that we think we need to include within that contract, we start to do that.
Okay.
So we've looked at all of those very closely over the last few months.
Evan, I missed, I had a question about the city sludge hauling process. It went up 15,000 this year. What is the status of us switching over to this county collecting our biosolids so that we can phase that out? Is that within the next year?
Yeah. Is that, what account number is that?
511-100, page 35.
So we won't be out of the sludge hauling business until the Phase 3B is completed, the dewatering. So that's just getting underway. So that'll be about 18 months. So we have right now one more season under contract with the farmer to be able to land dispose. But the other thing that we're doing more of now than we have in the past is hauling on our own, hauling to the county, because now.
Already hauling some there?
Correct. It's in order to bring down our stockpile.
Yeah.
In order to get ready for Phase 3B. So for the last several years, we've been hauling on our own to the county. We pay them an agreed upon rate to take.
Sludge. Sludge
Correct.
sludge goes to the field up here, and then sludge goes to the county.
Correct.
We're not drying it yet or anything?
Correct. We won't dry it until about 18 months.
Okay.
If we were ready for that, would the county, is their facility, how's their facility?
They're coming along, so hopefully here pretty soon down at South Coastal. So
Okay.
certainly before we think we'll be ready for them to come start hauling it for us.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
We can talk about the water department next.
What page, Evan?
That is on page 33 and 34. Let's see. Line 511000 is engineering. That is for our water main replacement, our water allocation and monitoring program, and our on-call services with our engineer.
I'm sorry, you're in the water fund?
Yes, water.
Page 33.
3.
Okay.
Line 52100 is general maintenance. This is for parts for water line replacements. We have lab supplies, misutility tickets that we call in for utility locate, water filters, water pumps, and pump repair parts. Line 52300, building maintenance, went up to 35,000. That is for roof repairs at the building and also the garage and the shed that we have there. And that's everything I had on water, unless you had any other questions.
Did we say we were going to start trading in those FlexNet meters? Did I dream that, or did we actually talk about that?
We'll talk about it when we get to the CIPs. We're trying to add that now as a system.
Okay, gotcha.
Just a question on 504,000 OPEB expense.
OPEB.
Had it 2 years, but is that something that goes away? 17,000?
That's other post-employment expenses.
Thank you.
And that's basically medical insurance for retired people.
And then sort of along those lines, down towards the bottom, 518100 workman's comp dropped by 15,000.
Workman's comp, we've been getting refunds recently. We went in with the state plan a number of years ago, and seems to be fairly well controlled. At the end of the year, they have an experience rate, and we get a check at the end of the year. So it's lower.
This through DFIT?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And don't we budget based off of their recommendations and over the time?
We
based off
don't,
of our
because
number of
we-
employees,
well,
experience, and
It's
things?
too much guesswork, I think. You know, you don't really know what you're going to get, because some years we've gotten a lot. So, and really the timing of that refund goes into the next fiscal year, because by the time you get it, you've already closed your books. So it's been a good deal for the city, though.
What, on the 524,300, the interest and principal for Lynch, we've always budgeted way, way more than,
Well, we
than we've had.
refinanced at 1.6%, and their rate was, I think, one of the higher rates. And So what we've done on that, Commissioner, we've taken that total loan and we, although it was in one single loan, we saved money on the legal fees. When we did it, it would cost us a lot more. So the loan that we have is for it includes the City Hall loan and the Lynch Well. Those were the two loans that we paid off. So we created separate amortization schedules for those. And what's in the Lynch Well amortization schedule should tie in to what we have here, but we can double check that.
Okay, thanks.
If there are no other questions on water, we can move on to the wastewater department, located on page 35 and 36. Account 508-100 chemicals, we see that the cost of chemicals continues to increase. So we've budgeted $300,000. Line 511000 is engineering. That includes Beacon engineering for our GIS and CCTV work, our nutrient management and sludge disposal site, and the force main condition and testing. Just general maintenance, 520-100. That includes piping, level controls, clarifier parts, flow meter calibrations, pump repairs. We've also started rebuilding pumps as well to have them in stock in the event that one of the pumps goes bad. So we will repair, rebuild those, and keep them in inventory, and also blower parts, the wastewater treatment plant. Auto lease, I just wanted to touch on this. This is account 522-450. We've budgeted a little bit higher for this in the current fiscal year and the upcoming fiscal year. That is because we are awaiting delivery of a crane truck, which is one of the, I guess you could call it a specialized piece of equipment. It's a truck that uses a crane, which is hooked up to the truck's transmission to allow us to pull pumps and things like that. And so we have been waiting for that vehicle for about 2 years now. And so we need to budget that expense because when it is delivered, we need to pay a certain percentage of the down payment for the upfits. And then after we pay that percentage of the upfit, then it's just going to be an annual lease payment. So that amount may actually come down. It just depends on when the vehicle is delivered. I don't have any reason to believe that it won't be delivered this fiscal year, so more than likely that expense will come down in one of the future budget meeting presentations. That's everything I had on wastewater, unless there are any questions.
When do we renegotiate the rental on the sludge field? Is that?
No later than the fall of this coming year, so in 2023. Yes.
And is that, we're on a 5-year contract or what?
We've done 3 each of the last couple iterations. We'll have to make some sort of an agreement with the county. The county is they're going to request that we keep the lease going even after we don't specifically need it, to have it as a backup in case. I think our position would be, and we don't mind extending the lease, but, you know, it's going to be on their nickel. So those discussions have just been in the preliminary stage so far, but certainly to have it as a backup is probably a good idea. But do we need to pay for all that? Probably not so much.
Is that a forever thing?
I was going to say, how long does that go, and when is it our intended date to no longer need that?
We think in 18 months we'll no longer need it, because at that point our dewatering facility will be done, and now the county's required to come pick it up from us and dispose of it.
Are we going to have one dewatering machine like South Coastal or dual? You know?
Yep.
Are we going to have one?
One, yes.
One.
Mm-hmm. Salaries line item went up over 7%. Does that include another body, or is that just increases?
Yes, you're in wastewater?
Yeah.
Yeah, we, had more, I saw that too, and I compared what we had in the budget last year, the number of bodies, because we budget for each position. So we had more people, and I think there were 2 more people in there, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so 2 people plus whatever the normal increase is.
Well, yeah, I think they were filling unfilled positions. I think they had some vacancy there.
Okay.
Anything else, Evan?
No. That's all.
Anything, commissioners? Tony, Jay, Ed, Patrick, Tim, Bunky?
Out of questions.
Oh, I do have one question. Bert, I'm sorry. I meant to ask this earlier when you were going through the income on the enterprise funds. You've got the CD interest for each of them. And I'm assuming that's just a carryover, but that would include any CDs plus the new treasury bonds we have as well?
Well, we still have some money in CDs, but...
But it combines both of those line items?
Well, I think there's several line items for CDs, if I'm not mistaken. But...
Okay, but in any event, the treasury bonds are captured in one of those line items?
Yes, you'll see that the income went way up.
Yeah.
And,
So, Bert,
Yes.
since Edward brought it up, is this a valid question that only you can answer? What is the total amount we've got invested in Rehoboth? And I don't intend to do the math.
you're talking about CD, treasury bill
I'm
investments?
talking about what is the total amount we've got invested? I don't care what kind of investment it is.
What are our cash reserves?
Well, if you take this, yeah, thank you for clear. If you take your cash plus your treasury bill investments that we have, you're around 38 million right now.
Thank you.
But keep in mind, it's not all available to be spent.
I didn't say anything. I didn't say a word.
No matter how hard I try.
Yeah, I got this fellow down here at the end of the table. He's always twisting my arm for.
And Bert, when you take out the enterprise funds that are dedicated in those, what are the general fund reserves?
General fund, I think right now our main operating account has about 10 million in there, and then there's some other in there. So I think you're somewhere between 10 and 13 million in the general fund.
Okay, that truly is the rainy fund, the rainy day fund.
Well, what I really refer to the rainy day fund is a transfer tax, because that's restricted by state law. It's loose restrictions, but when we invested, we were very careful to segregate that. In other words, that money that was in the transfer CD accounts is we set up an exact account at Edward Jones for that.
Right.
We didn't want to have to go ahead and recalculate the income and allocate it and everything. So what I did is there's one for water, one for wastewater, and then essentially what we've done, we've invested your rainy day fund.
Right.
And it's about, that amount, I think, was about 12.5 million. And there's still more that we have in holding in cash. I didn't want to put all of it in there, but I wanted to get as much as I could.
Thank you.
Anything else, individual commissioners? Go ahead, Patrick.
Just on the schedule, the CIP, we got a printout, or got it this way. Is that just to review, because still on target for March 6th to do the full CIP? Okay.
We could certainly go through the Public Works CIP now, or defer until the,
I think
Want to confirm that.
we've got a good schedule. I think let's go with that. Is that all right? Need I ask you?
No, you need not.
All right, good of the order. Anything more, Bert, Lawrence, Evan, or Kevin?
Thank you very much.
I want to thank you very much. Good job. We appreciate it. With that, I'll call this meeting adjourned at 4:54 p.m. Thank you very much.